So we just talked before about trees and foliage, and now I know there's times where we might have in the middle distance some rows of shrubs. So we've got shrub, we might have a poplar, 2 or 3 poplars, and we want to create different shapes and colours in these trees. We might have a little shed or a house here, so we'll leave that. Some foliage behind there, perhaps that's a gum tree, so I'll indicate that by the gap in the foliage. But one of the things I want you to notice is what I'm not doing is creating a straight line across here when I paint or when I draw. This this suggestion of foliage back a little bit in the distance is like when negative painting that there's grass or there might be fence posts and things along there that we want to leave the white of the paper or whatever our first wash was. So that's a consideration. And even though I'm painting small, I'm still coming in with this large brush. So I might start over on the side with a dark greeny colour, so into my indigo. I'm going to keep it really simple colour-wise and stick to what we've been doing. I want a little bit more moisture in it, not too dry, but I like that it's leaving gaps. I'm not painting it fully solid, and I'm being really conscious now down here to have a broken edge to the bottom of the shrubs. So even if this does form a line in the distance at the top of a hill or on the flat near where your house is, you often will have a line of shrubbery in a lot of Australian scenes anyway. I want it to be broken so that it's creating information and detail that might be here in front. So as I come across now these poplars, often they're in the middle of changing seasons, so I'll keep it simple and just stick with the colours I've been using. So cad yellow I'm going to drop in first. That was just a bit too runny. I don't like to pat, but just so that it dries quicker for me, I'll just lift that off. I like thicker pigment. And now I've changed how I'm using my brush. I've gone from on the side to up and down strokes, because poplars are tall and narrow. Conifers, maybe if you're from overseas, you might think of these. I'm being conscious that they're different heights, so this one I might make much taller so that I don't have 3 in a line that are the same height and the same width and distance apart. Now I'm coming back into my dark colour to drop it in on one side. So now I've created the light source coming from the left. So I've got to keep this in mind with my next lot of shrubs and trees. So if I wanted that green to stay where I put it, I've got to have it as thick or thicker than the yellow that I put down. So that's really important that you don't go into watery pigment when you come back to add, unless you're wanting really loose style of painting that has blooms and cauliflowers and things. So each time I come back in and I'm touching into something, I'm making sure my paint is thicker and drier, so more pigment. I'll just refine this shape a little bit. And I don't want to have a halo between these two, just because this one's shadowed. I've done it in that real blue-green, so I just need to not have a shaft of light around it. So then I was coming into this tree behind the house, and this is where I will do a really nice straight line to form that man-made item of the roof in front. So I'm just getting the shed roof or the house roof formed first, and then now I want to come back to this change in the way I use the brush. So I'm actually just doing really light curving strokes. They're smaller, this canopy out here of leaves. Might fill that a little bit more. And gums often are quite dull in colour, so if you want to tone a green and make it more neutral, add a little touch of red. We might even add totally red down here. So this is light red again. So it's not a light red, it's the colour is called light red. And I'm going to drop some green into that because on its own that's not going to look like a shrub. But I'll leave the light red at the edges and in places so that it does look like we've got maybe a tree with new foliage. Are they pots forum or something like that? I've got this funny diagonal line coming up here, so at the moment I'm working on just breaking that a little bit, and I'm decision making here in the way that I do that, so I might come higher. I don't feel like this tree lends itself to be higher, so maybe there's another gum behind there. And then now we might come back into a blue or green like we had at the start. And some more shrubs. But some of these may well have light hitting one side, so that's where I might go. So almost pure cad yellow then was what I added. And so now I'm doing these little chut-chut strokes, a little bit monotonous, so I'm joining them up, but I kind of liked that shape that it was giving me at the top. So because I want to now come back and negative paint to keep the light happening here, I've got to make sure I've got thicker paint so that it doesn't push that light away. It'll sit where I put it. So I'm just dropping some dark in so that I've got sort of layers of foliage happening. And I just cleaned my brush then, and I'm just softening that blue. I put a little bit of it over here. And so usually if I was painting this would be my second layer of paint. So I would have done the sky or the mountain coming in behind. I'd have a wash on the foreground. So this wouldn't be white. This would be, generally a yellowy grass color. That is what's filling these little gaps. But I might then come along and put, I'll do the little gum tree needs some stems. Not stems, what do you call them? Trunks. Well, before this dries, sorry, sometimes as well I'll use my fingernail just to scratch out a couple of little highlights, which might also be stems. Little light. I might pop, while I've got this dark on my brush, I might pop a little bit of it here and there down near the bottom. That will ground. I wouldn't put this color up near the top. This is creating depth and grounding your shrubs. So I haven't defined any of this. This could be any kind of shrub over here. I can just give it a little bit of detail by putting a couple of strokes of suggestion of trunks. I can also do that with lavender on my brush. So Holbein lavender, I've spoken about before, looks like white in the shade. So it will look like little tree trunks peeping out. But you make sure you don't put it everywhere. It might also be a color that I put in to indicate, there might be another shed I wanted here, or a water tank or something. Like a bigger shape will look like there's something that's white, but that it's in the shade of the trees. Let's just pretend the building is shadowed on this wall. And even during the building, I'll have a straight top edge, straight sides, but I don't want a firm straight line at the bottom, because that would make it look like it is cement right up to the building. It would usually have a shadow on the eaves, and because of where we've put the shadow, this would also actually be in shadow. And because now what I should have thought about was putting this end in shadow, keeping this a bit lighter. I wouldn't press that off, but what I might do is just pop a little bit of yellow in it and push that purple back a little bit so my shadow glows a little bit lighter. I'm going to do another whole tutorial on making shadows glow. And the yellow is a little trick that I would use for that. And then you might have just a few little darks indicating posts or, fence palings. They might come down depending on what your scene is. I haven't got a photo that I'm working from, but often you'd have a variety of things happening. You might have something up here, or you might want to add just little touches of red. So there might be buckets or who knows what, piles of things. That could be a tractor right back there. We don't have to have detail or be definite about what it is. We just need to suggest it. So hopefully that helps you use your brush in different ways to create a variety of foliage without much change to the colour, or without much concern, about what colours you're using. It's more about just changing your stroke and the heights and various shapes of the trees to indicate a bank of trees and shrubs.